Unsettling incidents, shocking outcomes, and moments that disturbed millions watching.
Diana, Princess of Wales, has in fact been killed in that car accident.
These are the darkest moments in television history.
Now that he's been arrested, he killed his estranged wife by shooting her multiple times in a crime being described as brutal.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Peter Jennings at ABC News headquarters. In the words of a flight director at NASA, it has been a bad day. 7 astronauts have died, their families shattered. The space program has been dealt a terrible blow.
On the morning of February 1st, 2003, viewers across the U.S. tuned in to watch history unfold. Little did they know it would unfold in the most tragic way possible. Peter Jennings, a familiar and trusted figure on ABC News, appeared on screen, clearly carrying the weight of what had just happened. The Space Shuttle Columbia, which had been scheduled to return home that morning, had broken apart during re-entry. What was supposed to be a smooth landing turned into one of NASA's darkest moments. Jennings wasn't just reading a script. He was delivering something much heavier, a national tragedy unfolding in real time. And he did it with a kind of care and presence that made people stop what they were doing and just listen. His voice was steady, but there were moments of pauses where the gravity of the situation seemed to settle in.
The space program has been dealt a terrible blow. The larger family of men and women in space exploration devastated.
Flying priest. On April 20th, 2008, Father Adelir Antonio de Carli set out from the coastal city of Paranaguá, Brazil, on a journey unlike anything the locals had seen before. Seated in a simple chair and lifted by nearly 1,000 colorful helium balloons, his goal was to break the world record for balloon flight duration and raise funds to build a rest stop for truckers passing through his parish.
There will only be good weather during my flight.
He wore a thermal flight suit, helmet, parachute, and waterproof gear, carrying food, water, a GPS device, and a satellite phone. The plan was to drift inland toward his destination, but as he rose to an estimated 6,000 meters, the wind shifted. Instead of pushing him toward land, it carried him out over the Atlantic Ocean.
Later that night, he told his crew by satellite phone that he would not be able to complete the planned flight, and that he was beginning to descend over the ocean.
At first, he kept in touch with air traffic control, relaying his position, but before long, the signal was lost. When news spread that he was missing, a massive search began. The Brazilian Navy, Air Force, local fire services, and even a plane rented by his family joined the effort, searching the waters off the Santa Catarina coastline.
As long as any realistic possibility of finding him exists, we will continue looking for him.
At one point, small fragments of balloons were spotted floating in the sea, a worrying sign. For a short while, rescue teams held on to hope that he might still be found, perhaps carried farther along the current. And on April 24th, the Air Force ended its involvement in the search, and by April 29th, the Navy scaled back operations as well, noting that the chances of locating him were becoming increasingly unlikely. For months, nothing. Until July 4th, when fishermen near the city of Macaé discovered part of a body in the water. The remains had been carried far from where Adelir had vanished. After DNA tests were completed on July 29th, the authorities confirmed the identity. The remains were returned to Paranaguá, where a large crowd gathered to honor him with applause and a memorial mass, before he was laid to rest in a chapel in Ampere. Disturbing past. In 1972, Edward Wayne Edwards walked onto the set of To Tell the Truth, a popular game show where contestants tried to guess who among 3 individuals was telling the truth about their identity.
Do we infer that you did not have a good relationship with your parents?
This is true.
Edwards presented himself as a reformed criminal, someone who had turned his life around after years in prison. He claimed he'd left his old ways behind and was now a model citizen. The panel laughed and moved on.
The real Ed Edwards, please stand up.
But what they didn't know was that the man sitting before them wasn't reformed at all. He was hiding something far darker. Edwards and his family would move houses quite often, but wherever they moved, crimes would follow. Homicides, often with no clear suspects. His daughter, April Balacio, from a young age, sensed something wasn't right. But as she got older, the dots started to connect. the timing of their moves, proximity to crime scenes, all started to make sense.
Didn't stay in one place for very long. I think I calculated I had been to 16 different schools throughout from starting kindergarten through my senior year. So I truly believe almost every place that we live, my dad killed someone.
In 2009, those suspicions became too strong to ignore. April decided to search her father's name online, pairing it with the details of a few unsolved crimes she remembered from the places they had lived. What she found was alarming. The dates lined up. So did the locations. She contacted investigators in Wisconsin and shared everything. One case stood out immediately: the 1980 double homicide of Tim Hack and Kelly Drew in Jefferson County. With her information, authorities reopened the case and submitted preserved evidence for new DNA testing. The results were conclusive. The DNA matched Edward Wayne Edwards. Once arrested, Edwards admitted to 5 homicides in total. The details he provided matched long unsolved cases, including some that had baffled investigators for decades. Some said he might have been the Zodiac, but those theories remain speculative. Edwards was a dangerous man, pretending to be a friendly neighbor.
I believe my father, for some reason, was upset with the landlord, and he proceeded to try to burn the home down that we were living in, and we just picked up and headed to Atlanta. Nothing out of the ordinary in my life.
Cost of truth. This is the story of Ruth Thalia Sayas, and how a moment of truth on screen turned into a case that shook a nation. Ruth Thalia Sayas Sanchez appeared on the first episode of El Valor de la Verdad, or The Value of Truth, a Peruvian reality show where contestants reveal deeply personal details on air. She spoke openly about her double life.
¿Trabajas en un nightclub?
Sí.
¿Has aceptado dinero a cambio de tener relaciones sexuales?
Sí.
Working in a nightclub, accepting money for her services, and, most painfully, that she loved her boyfriend only until something better comes along. That confession would be the cause of her own demise. A few months later, on September 11th, 2012, Brian Romero Leyva, her boyfriend, lured her to his home under the guise of a conversation. But she would never come out again. He was found inside a well on a property owned by Brian's uncle, Reddy Leyva Cerron. In September 2012, Brian confessed, and justice, when it came, felt delayed and incomplete. In February 2014, a Peruvian court sentenced Brian Romero Leyva and his uncle Reddy Leyva Cerron to life in prison and ordered them to pay 700,000 soles in civil reparations. The Supreme Court upheld that sentence in August 2015, confirming that their motive was purely financial greed tied to Ruth Thalia's winnings on the show. But in 2021, their sentences were inexplicably reduced to 33 and 30 years. Ruth Thalia's father called the decision indignant, and Ruth paid the cost of truth. From TV to trial.
He competed on Family Feud as his whole town cheered him on, but his local hero status is over now that he's been arrested, with cops calling him a murderer. They say he killed his estranged wife by shooting her multiple times in a crime being described as brutal.
Back in 2019, Tim Bleefnick appeared on an episode of Family Feud alongside his family. Steve Harvey asked him, "What's the biggest mistake you made at your wedding?" Tim responded with a smirk, saying, "I do." It was a joke that made everyone laugh.
What's the biggest mistake you made at your wedding?
Honey, I love you, but said I do. I'm gonna get in trouble for that, aren't I?
Yeah. But a few years later, it would come back to haunt everyone. By early 2023, Tim and his wife Rebecca Bleefnick were deep into a messy divorce. Their marriage had fallen apart long ago. There were ongoing custody battles over their children, protective orders, and growing tension between them. People close to Rebecca had started to worry about how far things might go, though no one expected it would lead to her demise. On February 23, 2023, Rebecca didn't show up to pick up her kids from Tim. Sometime later, her father found her on the bathroom floor and called 911. Officers arrived at her home in Quincy, Illinois, and ruled out burglary since nothing was stolen. It was personal, so they turned their attention to Tim. He wasn't living with Rebecca anymore, but the connection was obvious. And as they started pulling together digital records and surveillance footage, a clear picture started to form. Tim had searched online for things like how to break into a house through a second-story window, how to delete security footage, and how long residue stays on clothing. Cameras in the neighborhood showed a man riding a bicycle toward Rebecca's house the night it happened. Police recovered that exact bike, hidden in Tim's basement. His phone data placed him near her home at the time. He was arrested in March 2023 and charged with homicide and home invasion. In court, he pleaded not guilty, but prosecutors argued that this was not a crime of passion. It had been planned.
I have not seen, nor do I believe will I ever see, a nice or decent murder. It is our position today, Your Honor, that the law is designed to punish those with life without parole only for the worst of the worst.
The jury took just a few hours to convict him. In August 2023, Tim Bleefnick was sentenced to life in prison with no chance of parole.
Tim Bleefnick is being held at the county jail on a no bond warrant. Rebecca's family says they are relieved by his arrest, but says the investigation is far from over.
Passing of People's Queen.
That Diana, Princess of Wales, has in fact been killed in that car accident in Paris just a few hours.
On August 31st, 1997, millions turned on their TVs to hear something they couldn't believe. Behind the desk at Sky News, Kay Burley was the one who had to deliver the worst news imaginable. Not just for the country, but for the entire world. Princess Diana, the only royalty that won the hearts of millions across the globe, had been involved in a car incident in Paris. Diana, alongside her partner, Dodi Fayed, and the driver Henri Paul, all sadly passed away.
Princess Diana dead.
Oh, she died.
Where's the remote?
Oh my God.
The world didn't know all the details yet, but in those early minutes, no one could believe what they were hearing. There have been countless theories as to what may have happened, with conspiracy theories that involved members of the royal family, but all of them shared one thing in common. The world had just lost a part of its kindness.
She died at 4 a.m. after going into cardiac arrest. That, according to doctors at the hospital in Paris, Diana, Princess of Wales, is dead.
Tom Cruise. When celebrities promote their movies, interviews usually follow a script. But in 2005, 2 of Tom Cruise's interviews broke that pattern completely. What started as simple conversations quickly turned into moments that would follow him for years. In June of that year, Cruise appeared on NBC's Today Show to promote War of the Worlds. During this segment, host Matt Lauer brought up Cruise's public criticism of Brooke Shields, who had spoken about using Paxil to treat postpartum depression. Cruise didn't hesitate to respond.
I've never agreed with psychiatry, ever. Before I was a Scientologist, I never agreed with psychiatry. And then when I started studying the history of psychiatry, I started realizing more and more why I didn't agree with psychiatry.
Aligned with the Church of Scientology's strong opposition to psychiatry and psychiatric medication, he called psychiatry a pseudoscience.
Psychiatry is a pseudoscience.
And dismissed the idea of chemical imbalances altogether. Cruise challenged Lauer directly, telling him he didn't understand the issue and hadn't done enough research. "You're glib," he said. "You don't know the history of psychiatry. I do."
I understand there's abuse of all of these. Now, you see, here's the problem. You don't know the history of psychiatry. I do.
Brooke Shields responded in a New York Times editorial, defending her choice and encouraging open conversations about mental health. A year later, Cruise privately reached out to apologize. She accepted, saying the apology felt sincere, and the matter ended quietly between them. Just a few months later, a second interview added more fuel to the conversation. While speaking with Peter Overton on 60 Minutes Australia, Cruise was asked about his beliefs in Scientology. The question was direct, but respectfully framed. Cruise, however, was guarded. When Overton shifted the topic toward Cruise's relationship with his ex-wife, Nicole Kidman, the mood changed immediately.
Listen, here's the thing, Peter. Yeah. You're stepping over a line. You're stepping over a line. You know you are.
Well, I suppose they're questions that people want to know.
Peter.
Overton would later describe it as one of the most intense interviews of his career.
Take responsibility for what you want to know. Don't say what other people. I'm just telling you right now, okay? Just put your manners back in.
Do you think I was out of line?
Yes, absolutely.
Well, I apologize for that sincerely.
Reptilian preacher.
Any Christian, I was a Christian, I am a Muslim. If you want, I can give both sides, easy. But he will ask you if you delivered the message.
During a routine sermon being live streamed, something happened that quickly pulled attention away from the message. The preacher had just begun speaking when the video feed showed a strange visual shift. For a few seconds, his face appeared to distort into something unnatural, green-toned, elongated, and oddly reptilian.
Both sides, easy. But he will ask you if you delivered the message.
Viewers who saw the footage described the face as completely different. The eyes, the skin texture, and the shape of the mouth no longer looked human. A short time later, the same distortion appeared again. This time, it lasted longer. The reptilian appearance was even more defined, with clearer lines and more visible facial structure.
I'll be the Christian and tell you this, and then I'll be the Muslim and give the answer.
Many people who were watching the sermon live began recording or screen capturing what they were seeing. What makes this incident so unusual is that digital glitches, especially on live streams, tend to be chaotic and inconsistent. They rarely repeat the same pattern twice, but in this case, the distortion followed the same transformation both times. Some viewers believed it was a coincidence caused by streaming issues. Others saw it as evidence of reptilians living among us.
Saw somebody change their religion to another religion in the temple of that religion, and the father was the priest there. What would you think?
Courtroom quake.
No discussion about what he needed.
Okay. Well, he got your credit card, your bank card somehow, and he got...
In July 2008, filming for an episode of Judge Judy was suddenly interrupted by a low rumble that quickly turned into a full shake.
Got your PIN number somehow.
The cameras kept rolling as the set rattled, causing the audience to look around in alarm. Even Judge Judy herself stepped away from the bench. Within seconds, the tremor eased and the room began to settle. Officials reported it to be of 5.2 magnitude that struck California, centered about 28 miles from Los Angeles, but strong enough to be felt more than 100 miles away. Thankfully, everyone was fine. Live street robbery. In Rio de Janeiro, a live TV interview about rising crime suddenly turned into the perfect example of the problem. The woman being interviewed was standing on a busy street, talking about the dangers in her neighborhood, a place already known for pickpockets and muggings. She was in the middle of her sentence when a hand slid across her back from behind. In one swift move, a young man tried to yank her necklace away. She reacted just as quickly, pulling back before he could take it. The thief darted off into the crowd, disappearing before anyone could stop him. One of the crew members gave chase, but the robber was already gone. Preacher's sin.
The Brooklyn pastor who made headlines when he was robbed of expensive jewelry during a live-streamed church service has been indicted on federal charges.
Among the allegations against Lamore Whitehead, that he scammed a parishioner out of $90,000.
In July 2022, Lamore Miller Whitehead, widely dubbed the Bling Bishop for his flashy style, was delivering a sermon at his Brooklyn church, Leaders of Tomorrow International Ministries. The service was being live-streamed when men burst in and made off with over $1 million worth of his jewelry, including a Cuban link chain estimated at $390,000 and a $75,000 Rolex.
Just like this, in my wife's face, pointed, just like this, in my 8-month-old baby's face, and then had the gun to the back of my head as he ripped off my jewelry.
Bishop Lamore later said that God said these robbers could take his materials, but not his soul. However, the bishop had sold his soul long ago. Just a few months later, in December 2022, federal prosecutors indicted Whitehead, not for the robbery, but for allegedly defrauding parishioners and extorting others. The charges included wire fraud, attempted extortion, and lying to the FBI. One case involved a retired parishioner who invested $90,000 of her life savings in hopes of buying a home.
You and your mother trusted this guy.
Yeah, we trusted him a lot.
Money. Whitehead allegedly diverted toward luxury cars and high-end clothes. In another instance, he tried to extort $5,000, then an additional $500,000 from an auto shop owner by falsely claiming access to favors from New York's mayor. A jury found Whitehead guilty on all counts. In March 2024 and in June 2024, he was sentenced to 9 years in prison.
Long time coming, and we're very happy to see that the verdict was guilty today.
Antiques sting.
My name's Roger Cook from BBC Television. About the antiques that you're passing off, the fakes that you're passing off as the real thing.
Back in 1981, veteran investigative journalist Roger Cook was filming a report in Brighton when things took a dangerous turn. Cook had been digging into a business selling high-quality fake antiques, pieces so convincing that some had already slipped through the gates of Sotheby's and Christie's, two of the world's most respected auction houses. Cook confronted dealer Harris Christopher George about the operation.
That's your words. Look, we put one of these Mesotami things in auction for £700 and got it.
But instead of answering, George stormed off, then came back wielding a metal bar. In front of a live television crew, he chased Cook through the street. After this, Cook required medical attention, but he recovered quickly and went back to doing what he does best. As for the fate of George's business and the counterfeit antiques, no clear outcome was ever made public.
Come on! Get something out of it! The fake one shop! Nobody owns the bloody place! Come on then!
Live possession.
พี่ไม่อยากให้มาเลยอ่ะ
คือเขาจะมานี่เริ่มมาเลยใช่ไหมเขา นี่คือ
It was just another light-hearted talk show in Thailand back in July 2016, where nothing wild ever happened. But halfway through this interview, Thai model Thipawan Chapupuang went quiet. Not like she was thinking, but something mysterious and creepy.
นี่คือเข้ามาแล้วใช่ไหมมายังใจเย็นนะฮะเป็นไรครับนี่จะเป็นอะไรอยู่
She explained that on a recent trip to Rayong, she felt something follow her back. Not a person, but what Thai folklore calls a pop. A spirit said to crave raw meat. Right there on live TV, her voice shifted, deeper and strange, her body stiffening as she began demanding pig's blood. The host tried to keep the conversation going like nothing was wrong, maybe hoping she'd snap out of it. But that wouldn't happen until the very end of the interview. He brought over a Buddha necklace and slipped it around her neck. Then her body relaxed, her voice returned to normal, and the eerie spell was broken, leaving the studio in stunned silence.
ออกไปโอเคไหมนี่ใคร
Reptile Eyes. Uploaded in October 2018, this unsettling clip is said to have come from a Spanish news broadcast. The uploader claims it might be proof that reptilian shapeshifters are living among us. Everything seems normal until the end of the report, when the reporter blinks, and for a split second, it looks like he has a second set of eyelids. The uploader said that the reporter, thinking the camera was off, might have briefly dropped his disguise. It ties into the controversial theory made famous by former BBC sports broadcaster David Icke, who believes a hidden race of lizard-like beings walks among us. Surprisingly, over 4% of registered American voters reportedly agree with him. This clip is unsettling, but it shows that these reptilian beings might have infiltrated other parts of our world. Shape-shifting live. It starts off looking like any standard news segment. A reporter standing in front of the camera, calmly delivering the story. Halfway through, something strange happens. Without warning, the reporter bolts out of frame, as if reacting to something we can't see. The cameraman quickly adjusts, making sure he stays out of sight for the rest of the shot. People online, however, noticed creepy details. The reporter's skin started to change, and unlike any other glitch, his skin started to deform into a reptilian, scaly-like appearance.
Now keep in mind, this is the family story. Their account of what they see happened here on campus earlier this month.
That is why some believe he went off camera to allow his human mask to come back on. Since this segment was being broadcast live, the network couldn't take it off the television completely.
Now keep in mind, this is the family story. Their account of what they see happened here on campus.
Live TV clash. On the morning of July 19, 2001, Good Day New York took an unexpected turn. Reporter Dick Oliver was delivering a live field report when anchor Jim Ryan cut in and openly criticized Oliver's delivery.
Back to you, Jim.
Ollie, don't let her go away. That's what. Does she have a response to that? Is she still there?
What's that?
Did the lady just leave?
Yeah.
Oh, that's too bad.
Oliver didn't hold back, and in a matter of seconds, the two got into a bit of a scuffle, and it was impossible for viewers to look away.
So what do you want now?
Well, if I have to teach you how to be a reporter, Ollie, I'll do that later.
Oh, why don't you do that later, Jim? I think the lady expressed herself, and you're not here, you're there.
The host tried to steer things back on track, but the tension remained till the end of the broadcast.
Oh, I'll give you lessons on how to become a reporter later.
I'll give you some lessons on how to be an editor, because I was your boss once.
Yeah, you were, and are no longer. How did that happen?
Well, I don't know.
Here's Ernabel DeMillo.
On-air scare. It was a routine live segment on use of vaccines for CTV Edmonton when reporter Jessica Robb suddenly began stumbling over her words.
Pushing the feds to...
Her voice faltered, and she mentioned she wasn't feeling well. Viewers could see something wasn't right. Within seconds, the broadcast cut back to the studio, leaving those watching at home uneasy and unsure of what had just happened. Later, Rob explained it was a personal health matter, not the cause some online were speculating. She assured everyone she was recovering and soon returned to her job.
Sorry, Airman, I'm not feeling very well right now, and I'm about to...
Okay, well, come back to me right now, and we'll make sure that, Jessica, you are doing okay.
Live hit. June 9th, 2025, Australian correspondent Lauren Tomasi was in downtown Los Angeles, covering the protests that had erupted over recent immigration and customs enforcement raids. The streets were tense, with crowds chanting and police lines standing firm. Mid-sentence, as she described the scene for viewers back home, it happened. A rubber round on live television. Her reaction was immediate. Despite the incident, Tomasi quickly steadied herself, telling the camera, "I'm good," before continuing.
You just shut the fuck up! You okay? I'm good. Are you okay?
Later, she confirmed to 9 News that both she and her cameraman were safe. As of now, no agency has stepped forward to claim responsibility, leaving questions about who it was and why it is still unanswered.
You just shut the fuck up! I'm good. Are you okay?
Robber returns.
Just 24 hours ago, this bank in North... What?
That's the robber.
Oh, that's the robber.
On December 14th, 2015, a bank in Rochester, Minnesota had already been robbed once that morning. But less than 45 minutes later, the suspect came back. And this time, a local news crew was already there. KIMT reported